Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lamont Weber, and today we have the privilege of being with someone who has not been on the show for a while. He's a contactee, he says, with negative manipulatory ETs. He prefers anonymity, so we've given him the name George, and he is asked to come back today with some very specific messages. Welcome, George.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Well, I know that you've been on before, and sort of the one caveat is that the experiences that you seem to be having, the abiding question is whether or not the experiences are due to manipulatory extraterrestrials or to human controllers in the transhumanist agenda or in the mind control program. So that's just one question that is going to be there and that we may surface at some point, at various points during our interview. But having said that, could you please just start sharing with us what it is that you want to come and say? Because I know that we have been speaking for some time and that you have some concerns of significance at this time.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for having me back again.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to do. Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please,
I want to
please speak
impress
up
upon everybody listening again the extent and the severity of what is happening right now regarding the scalar wave electromagnetic attacks on targeted individuals. So my tone in this interview will be a little bit more tough. And I'm going to invite the targeted individuals listening to this to engage in a form of in a type of strategy against these attacks that are occurring and a defense against it. But before I get into that, I want to discuss the parallels between what is occurring with these targeted individuals and alien abductees, because the parallels are striking, and I have talked to other TIs who are having co-current alien experimentation performed on them. In some cases, these in some cases, what is occurring is extremely blatant. So the targeted individual knows that the ETs are behind these attacks on them. In other cases, it is virtually undetectable unless you are initiated, in which case it is fairly obvious that it is ETs behind these attacks. So I'd like to just talk about the parallels again. You know, the TIs are experiencing anomalous implants, anomalous bruising, scars, holographic projections put into their minds, synthetic telepathy attacks, of course, other forms of information like data extraction that's being repeated back to them. They're having missing time. They're having what they refer to as gang stalking attacks, in which they will be attacked in what is a completely secure home, locked doors by what they thought were people, when in fact, in a lot of these cases, these are ETs who can, as already been discussed, they can phase through solid matter and are behind a lot of these attacks on TIs. So I just want to impress upon that to everybody listening to this, and that the strategy behind what is happening right now is quite simple. The ETs are attacking people who they see as a potential future. So people who are very, tend to be very intelligent, tend to be very creative, just very bright people tend to also be targeted individuals. So they are torturing and killing these people because they do not want to have to deal with them in the future. So what I propose as a strategy to fight this is quite simple. You see, these ETs are, you see, they're prone to wishful thinking. They think if they remove these people, that this will lessen the resentment and the resistance against them in the future. But they're prone to wishful thinking. It's quite foolish. So what I'm proposing is that to targeted individuals listening to this, I mean, we have nothing to lose. I would propose that to people listening to this, anybody you trust, whether it's friends or family, just anybody you trust, tell them what the strategy is of these ETs, and tell these people that you love and trust, tell them that these ETs should pay the ultimate price and should be severely punished for what they are doing and what they have done. And in that way, we can fight them in the here and now.
Right, right. Now, so you say that you're having interaction with the ETs, and they state to you that they are targeting specific soul groups?
Yes, they are. Yeah, the ETs that are attacking with the scalar wave electromagnetic technology are primarily the Greys and the Reptilians are the groups primarily behind this, and they are specifically attacking. They tend to be specifically targeting Andromedan souls, and that's what I have been told. And when they have talked to me and they have attacked me, they have been extremely sadistic. It's usually accompanied with laughing. And they have said to me that they are attacking Andromedan souls, and they refer to them as, they've jokingly said that they're Hutterites. So these ETs, they refer to them as Hutterites in respect that they're not fighters. So this specific ET group, as they exist as ETs, are not known to be fighters, but as a human soul group, they are. So if you go back to the Celtic, they would paint their faces blue in times of battle. This is apparently reflective of the Andromedan influence on Earth against tyranny. So they are specifically attacking Andromedan soul groups right now, and others as well. Perhaps what do they call the Syrian soul groups as well.
Right. Now, you mentioned that there's positive polarity ET groups and negative polarity ET groups. And you're making a point that the positive polarity are Procyon, Taygeta, Tau Ceti, and that these are the groups that may have first open public contact. Could you talk about that?
Right. Those are the groups that, if and when there is open public contact with human-looking ETs that will claim to be here out of our, they will claim to be here to assist us in some way, shape, or form, that they're here for our soul and spirit education, that they are our guides, et cetera, et cetera. This will be a lie, in my opinion. This will be a lie. And what's really occurring here is that they are here out of their own self-interest. These positive polarity ETs, who may claim to be from Tau Ceti, Procyon, Andromeda, Taygeta, et cetera, et cetera. They will claim to be here for our good, for our education, to assist us, et cetera, et cetera. But they are actually here out of their own self-interest to protect their own home worlds from the potential spread of the gray reptilian and gray human hybrids, who would potentially grow too powerful if they gained total control of Earth and could become a potential threat to the homeworlds of these human-looking aliens from Tau Ceti, Procyon, Tegeta, et cetera,
Now, what is your understanding of the research of Michael Mencken and its importance here around protecting targeted children?
Right. Before I go into that, I was talking about the groups the soul types being targeted. It's primarily the Andromedans. The Syrians are not a specific soul group being targeted, human Syrian soul groups, because they are actually one of the groups that are more complicit with the negative polarity as it concerns us. So it's primarily the Andromedans soul groups who are being targeted down here. But as this pertains to Michael Mencken and the whole targeted individuals aspect of this, he has been studying this and researching this for a long time, and he makes protective gear for children who are being attacked with these scalar wave electromagnetic weapons, and these children are having concurrent ET abductions in which the ETs are forcing them to play with the hybrid children. And this, as he said already, is a preliminary experiment on the part of the ETs to see how human children would behave and react with the ET hybrid children, and this, of course, weighs heavily into their plans for the future. But as it relates to the targeted individual attacks, the parallels are absolutely enormous. He's making a material called Velostat, protective material headgear. So he makes a type of sort of helmet or cap for these children to protect them from these synthetic telepathy messages that they are being attacked with, and other symptoms as well. And in this respect, it nearly parallels what is happening to the TIs, except for the fact that in the case of the standard TI, there's no blatant ET, there's no fingerprints that are left in these attacks on targeted individuals in standard TI cases, because the ETs do not want people to know that they are remotely and secretly killing off people that they don't want here.
Now, everything that you've mentioned to me so far, scalar wave EMF, scars, missing time, 3D holographic projections, all of that, even abductions in terms of the MyLabs, all of that seems to be sort of the standard operating equipment of the transhumanist agenda, of the human mind control forces and the technology, the remote neural technology that the transhumanist agenda, without any reference to extraterrestrials, is using now. How can you show that this is extraterrestrials and not just normal human targeting?
Right. Well, this is where human discernment comes in, and this is where where unfortunately the ETs have the upper hand, in the sense that they have the benefit of time and research and analysis and technology to mount an attack that is virtually undetectable. So it's in this way that human discernment becomes a huge part of it. But also like I've said before, these attacks aren't new. They are described in Nag Hammadi. These Archon alien mind parasite attacks have been going on for thousands of years. As described in the Nag Hammadi, they were described as ETs, and as attacking people based on people's specific fears. So it's a very old type of attack. It's an attack that's been using the same type of technology, but only now is it becoming a situation where the government could become partially to blame because there are some rudimentary forms of that technology that exist. But the problem with that is that if the government had access to this type of technology like data extraction, they would have won the Vietnam War, for instance, because a lot of PIs are claiming that this technology existed during the Vietnam War. But then I'd have to ask you, well, if it existed during the Vietnam War, they could simply extract data from whoever it is they needed to, the generals on the other side or what have you. And they would know where they are. They would know what their tactics are and where the location is, and they could have just ended it. So this type of power is so overwhelming that to think that the government would be in the position they are right now, because most of the major governments right now, I mean, they're on the brink. A lot of them are near the brink of something disastrous. So yeah, I would just say that. And also, I call upon just the fact that this show deals with, and the people who listen to it, and other people as well, know very well that it's hard to decide where the government influence begins and the alien influence ends. So it's already pretty well established that there's some kind of collaboration, but then I'd say, well, then you'd have to ask yourself, well, who's the one in charge? And it would become self-evident that the ETs would be.
Well, but it strikes me that a lot of the information that we've been getting is that the negative ETs, their presence, for example, the Dracos and the Draco reptilians and the Orion Greys, that their presence on the planet has been decreasing, and that the Regional Galactic Governance Council of the ethical human extraterrestrials, the Andromedans and the Pleiadians and Alpha Centaurians, all of them are now more and more in the ascendancy. So such that things are actually better than they were 18 months ago or 10 years ago, and that essentially the battle against the manipulatory ETs has been won.
Yeah, that's the claim that I've heard from other people, such as a more recent, I believe it was a more recent Andromedan contacting named Tolik, has also channeled this information regarding wars having been won, and except the wars are over, everything is going to be fantastic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem with that is that they have given him information that they've given him information that is basically lies mixed with the truth, because they have said to him things such as, people are going to be around 7 feet tall. When 2014 began, we'd all be 7 feet tall. And they've given him other misinformation, such as that the wars have been ended. Because if you ask other people who are being having contacts with these ETs and abduction experiences, they're still being attacked in a lot of cases, and in some cases quite violently. And that's still happening. There's egg extraction. There was a recent case on about eggs being extracted. So even not just the TI cases where they're being attacked with scalar wave electromagnetic weapons, but these abduction cases are still, these violent abductions are still occurring. So they have given him information that's just blatantly false, and they've said things to him like the comet that was supposed to, that people were concerned were Comet Ison. People were concerned that was going to become a problem and potentially strike the Earth. And they had told Tolik that comet was the spaceship called Xantarax. which of course is obviously a bold-faced lie. It was not a spaceship. It was a comet, and it disintegrated. So they said things to him that are just incoherent, sort of rambling, mixed with lies, mixed with some truth. So I'm just saying that these beings that are selling themselves as being benevolent are blatantly lying. So they can't be trusted on the face of it.
So what are these? Is this hyperdimensional Dracos and Orion Greys who are about now occupying Earth and Mars and their moons? Is this their strategic plan to occupy Earth and Mars? Is that what you're saying?
Right, exactly. Yeah, they've set up their camps here, and they do not want to move. They do not want to leave. From my experience, is that they are willing to do anything to remain here, and what they are terrified of is these negative polarity ETs are absolutely terrified of us, because they know that we have more life force than they could even dream of. We have more. The human spirit and the willpower we have here is absolutely, it's virtually unrivaled. So they are terrified of us, and they are terrified of the technological leaps and bounds we're making right now, because they realize that perhaps 2 decades from now, maybe sooner, maybe roughly after that, we're going to detect these scalar wave electromagnetic attacks on people. And at that point, the game will be over for them, and they will have to pursue a different strategy against us. And that's what they are doing right now. This is a preemptive strike against people that they do not want here. So you're absolutely right. They set up shop, and they do not want to move. They do not want to go.
Well, you talk about people who are channeling UFOs and aliens.
Right, exactly. This is another parallel. This is why sometimes I can't believe. The parallels are striking, because a lot of these contactees who they're saying they're channeling ET alien information are having these synthetic telepathy. Are actually being communicated with the same type of technology being used on targeted individuals, except in the case of these contactees, they are using these scalar wave electromagnetic technologies to give these contactees a bogus information that suits the agenda of these ET groups. So for people who they see as a pawn that can be used, they will not necessarily use these technologies to torture them or to kill them or anything like that, because obviously it's quite simple. These people they are a strategy, a tool that can be used in their agenda. But the parallels between what's being used on these people, and a lot of these people who are channeling UFOs and aliens have had face-to-face encounters with these ETs. So they are, at that point, you can see the parallels between that and these synthetic telepathy attacks on TIs.
Now, you had mentioned that you wanted to propose a strategy to our listeners.
Right. Well, like I mentioned briefly before, to the targeted individuals listening to this and anybody else who wants to help, the idea behind these attacks on all of us is quite simple. They want to kill a very bright, intelligent, creative people who can see through the deception and are a potential threat to the evil ETs and their agenda in the future. And their agenda involves a mass manipulation, and they are hoping to zombify the masses so that there is no retaliation for what has occurred. And it's to the extent that even these positive polarity ETs, Tau Ceti, Procyon, Tegeta, etc., this also benefits those groups because they do not want targeted individuals, abductees, or the families of these people to seek retaliation against these supposedly benevolent groups for not having done enough or done anything to stop it. So my strategy is to the targeted individuals listening to this right now, to the abductees, anybody that you trust, whether it's friends or family, just anybody you trust, tell as many people you can that you trust that this is their strategy and that these ETs should pay the ultimate price for what they have done and are doing. They should be severely punished. I mean, the highest punishment possible. And in that way, we can fight them in the here and now, because what's the point of doing that? What's the point of torturing and killing all these intelligent, bright people if they're going to face retribution anyway? So that's the strategy I'm proposing.
And who would administer that punishment to them?
Right. Now, this is where this is the difficulty, isn't it? But this is where it's going to become obviously it's already going to become a war. But the extent of it will be determined by how many people want to see justice done. But what I have gathered from my own research and from my other sources is that some of these positive polarity ET groups, they want to use the least amount of their own resources and manpower as possible. So to that end, they are going to seek to deputize, so to speak, certain people on our world to fight the negative polarity grays, reptilians, and the gray human hybrids. So that these positive polarity ETs from Tau Ceti, Procyon, Tegeta, these human-looking ETs, etc., they don't want to use their own manpower and resources, so they are going to give limited technology to people who are either willing to do so or feel desperate. And these technologies will have different capabilities, energy projection, force fields, etc. And this will be what was referred to by other contactees as a war of enforcement by an earlier Andromedan contactee, and that's the most likely scenario.
A war of enforcement between whom?
Between the Lyrans, which would be, i.e. us, against the tyranny of the grays, the reptilians, and the gray human hybrids. The problem is there will be, if and when this happens, there will be such enormous resentment towards these positive polarity human-looking aliens for not having done enough to fight and stop this, that it may even be very difficult to find people on our world who are even willing to take up the cause. And this is the problem. And this has a lot to do with why they are torturing and killing people, because they want to cover up the complicity of what has happened and what is happening. So, and to that end, I would bring something else up. It's to the extent that a lot of these positive polarity ETs did not have to even risk their own lives to fight off a lot of these negative polarity groups. They could have created their own artificial intelligence weapon systems and other robotic type technology to fight it, to fight off the negative polarity groups. But it would appear that they didn't even want to use their own resources. So the level of complicity here is staggering.
Now, but can you give us any specifics in any of your experiences that would lead us to believe that that the experiences you're having involves extraterrestrials and is not just my labs and, human targeting?
Right. Well, as it pertains to just me, as it pertains to just me, I'll get into other people. I've seen actual metallic craft on more than one occasion. I've seen amorphous light ships. I've had bedroom intrusions by the grays and the reptilian types. And they have attacked me. They paralyzed me and attacked me with synthetic telepathy messages. And as it pertains to other TIs, I'm in contact with one in particular who is convinced that it's ETs, and I don't want to give out the person's name,
Sure.
but she's very high up there in the targeted individuals branch in her specific country. But she's been targeted quite severely, and she's pretty convinced that it's ETs. And there's another TI in particular who's absolutely convinced it's ETs. And yeah, like I've already said, the parallels are staggering, and it's hard to know where, if you're a believer that it's just the government, you'd already recognize from listening to this show, from your own research, from your own understanding, that it's hard to understand where the alien influence begins and the government connection ends. So it's both. The connections there are enormous.
Right, right. And so is your purpose today really to talk to the TI community, to speak out to the rest of us, to the rest of society, or what are you seeking to do today?
Right, that's really my purpose, is to directly speak to the targeted individuals, but also, like I said, the abductees and anybody else who is listening, that they are literally, these ET groups are literally exterminating and torturing and killing people that they do not want here in the future. And I'll bring up some specific cases right now that people can research. There was a magistrate in England who was recently killed in a murder-suicide, and she was also a communications expert and public relations for the hospital. So there was no, the family was there was no history of anything that would have indicated this could have occurred. So they are attacking a lot of high-profile people right now, or people in a position of power, because these specific people are a potential threat to them in the future. And it was a bizarre murder-suicide. People can research this themselves. I believe her name was Miss Davies, but she was a judge in England. And she was recently involved in a bizarre murder-suicide, and they can influence people, like I've said, remotely through these scalar wave electromagnetic weapons, and they can cause them to act violently against themselves or others. And there was the recent writer of the movie Gray State, who was very anti-government, was also same thing. The family, he and his family all died in a murder-suicide. He was very anti-government, and these are the type of people who speak out and are a potential threat to them in the future.
Well, of those two cases, there doesn't appear to be any. What indications that are that those were ET related? There's no. I mean, there could have been foul play from government or from other sources, but from ETs.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Well, this is where, like I said before, discernment comes in, and also your own tendency to believe from your own experiences where all of this is heading and what this is. And in both these cases, these people were very outspoken, very high profile. And the writer of that movie, Gray State in particular, was extremely anti-government.
But was he anti-reptilian and anti-gray?
Well, yeah, absolutely, because anti-government would be seen as anti-reptilian, because the U.S. is unfortunately seen as being a sort of complicit with the reptilians and the gray aliens. in the respect that that they have become sort of what people have seen as a sort of a Nazi-esque government. So what these ETs are hoping to do is they want to remove people like this who are outspoken, because in the future, these are the kind of people who pose a problem to them. And the ETs are, their mindset, their thinking is that the governments, specifically perhaps even the U.S. government, will be forced to protect the gray human hybrids out of a fear of a complete and total breakdown, and to the extent that there is just nothing left. So they do not want people like that speaking out against the government, who will be, in some cases, most likely forced to protect these gray human hybrids out of fear of retaliation from the ETs.
Well, maybe these are just humans. You know, we're just dealing with human controllers who, in order to confound the human population, are using either contract rogue ETs, or they're using bio creations.
Yeah, I've heard about that. That's a theory that Stephen Greer has talked about. But the problem with that is, I refer again to the Nagamati, and that these attacks. I mean, these ETs are so old. I mean, to think that this is something that's just that just sort of manifested in the last century is ridiculous. I mean, you wouldn't even have to look at the Nagamati to know that the technology that is being demonstrated in some of these attacks. This would have to be, millions, if not billions of years old. I mean, they're doing things that are just beyond anything that our understanding of science is capable of. And then if you go back to the Nagamati, I mean, these reptilians and these fetus-looking gray aliens have been attacking people for thousands of years. And even the abductions are described in the Nagamati. So, yeah, I'm not sure what he's thinking about when he's talking about that. I'm not sure I understand. Though in some cases, the government may have limited technology capable of recreating something like that, but just not to the extent.
Well, the thing is that you've presented a case. What are we in civil society supposed to do about it?
Right, exactly, and therein lies the problem, because it's literally the most cowardly attack. I couldn't imagine a more cowardly attack. So this presents an enormous problem, because you're basically up against a virtually invisible enemy who can attack you remotely and is a total coward, and there's very little we can do about it. So like I said, I'm proposing the same thing again, that the TIs and other people listening to this, you absolutely have to tell people you trust and that will listen to you, that these are your wishes. If they are your wishes, because they're my wishes, but if they are your wishes, because I would like to see justice done, if they are your wishes, you need to tell people that you trust, that whether it's the government or the ETs, that they need to face the absolute highest punishment possible for this.
Right. Now, it seems to me that this runs counter to a great deal of science that I've seen, specifically time science, consciousness science, which shows that the Earth and human consciousness is increasing in frequency, is moving up toward upper third density, lower fourth, and that in fact is moving beyond, up to the scale and beyond the consciousness frequencies of the Dracos. who are basically, and the Orion Greys, who are basically service to self, and who cannot progress beyond lower fourth density without becoming service to others. And so I don't see this as a, you know, as consistent with the condition of the planet now, which is in fairly strong progression, is where consciousness is increasing in frequency, where we're moving on to a positive timeline, where you know, the matrix powers, even if they're in alliance with the Dracos and the Orion Greys, haven't been able to get their false flags going. So I just don't see this as a threat over time to our holographic reality.
Right. Well, I know I understand that, but what I'd like to say in response to that is that I actually agree with you. This is the whole purpose behind these attacks by the Draco reptilians, the Greys, et cetera, is they are specifically attacking people who carry Christ consciousness.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, so when you're talking about the lower 4D, they're also attacking, as you already know, they're attacking people who are also demonstrating 5D or Christ consciousness, because these people are the highest threat to them, because these Dracos, the Greys, et cetera, they actually envy our suffering, because our suffering creates gratitude, and they cannot recreate this with their technology. So it's of a consciousness that is totally beyond them, regardless of how much knowledge they have. So what they're doing, you're quite right, is they are, we are heading in that direction, but they are attacking people who are like that, who are sort of 5D, extremely loving, creative, bright people. They are attacking them and they are killing them, because these people are a threat to their control.
Well,
and
yeah. I could see how even the matrix powers could be attacking 5D people and using contract reptilians and Greys as thugs, you know, as muscle.
Right. Well, I understand what you're getting at. I would say to some extent there is some complicity in the sense that the human puppets who are being used are sort of unknowing. In most cases, these people who are being used are unknowing puppets. They don't even realize that they're being manipulated through these scalar waves, and they are enforcing the agendas of these Draco reptilians and the Greys. And in most cases, in most countries, these people in a position of power don't even realize it. So yeah, I would agree that there is a level of collaboration between human matrix control system groups and the ETs, but I would say that by and large, the ETs are the ones calling the shots. They're really, in my opinion, they're at the top of the food chain.
Yeah, so that our strategy as civil society and as a group of sovereign beings is to deconstruct the matrix governments, because then you deny any sort of a platform to those hyperdimensional ETs that may be, you know, service to self and inimical.
Right, absolutely. That's exactly right, because that's really all we can do. But it's sort of like a grassroots thing, and a lot of that's happening right now. A lot of these people who are protesting the Keystone pipelines and are at other protests, these people, a lot of them don't even realize it. They may not realize it, but they are actually fighting the Draco reptilian and Grey matrix system. just by doing that.
I
And
see.
they don't even realize it. Now, a lot of these people are probably Andromedan soul types or some other race, which is
Right.
the most benevolent of the ET races as they come. Because unfortunately, these ETs, regardless of whether they're positive polarity or negative polarity, the fourth dimension is a relatively sadistic dimension as it relates to ours, because we become like more like sort of like the animal kingdom or whatnot, or an illusion as it relates to theirs, if we're in the third dimension. So they become, they don't necessarily care very much. Unfortunately, they don't seem to care very much if we're suffering like dogs, or if we, or they don't seem to care very much about the injustice. So yeah, it's up to us, like you say, to fight the government, the puppets who are the likewise the puppets of the Dracos and the gray matrix system. Yeah, you're right.
Good. So we end up more or less at the same place.
Well, yes and no, in the sense that that's already happening, because the people who can, whether they know it or not, are protesting to the Keystone Pipeline. They're protesting other forms of injustice. But the ETs themselves, like I said, in my opinion, and it is the truth. I mean, I have to say that now because this will come out eventually, and people will be absolutely staggered about what comes out. They'll be in shock. But what we also have to do is we have to inform each other just on a mental level. We have to tell each other. It has to be a form of defense and strategy that doesn't even necessarily exist as having to do anything physical beyond telling another person what your wishes are for the future, and that what has been done is an injustice, and that you would seek justice done for what has happened, so that their plans of removing people who are 5D Christ consciousness can be fought in the here and now.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any points that you would like to make that you haven't made yet?
No, I think that for now that covers almost everything that I wanted to get across to your listeners for the moment, and I think it does do. I think what I have to say carries a lot of truth, regardless of whether or not people are more inclined to believe that there are these potentially benevolent groups that are going to come in. One day they're going to come here and remove the tyranny, the ET tyranny that exists, because it's just not going to happen like that, and it'll become more and more apparent as the decades go by.
So what is going to happen, in your view, with the ET groups? Yeah.
Okay, well, in my opinion, they're in the coming, whether it's in the coming years or decades, because no matter what they are doing to people with these scalar wave electromagnetic attacks are going to be detected by our science eventually, and this is what they are terrified of. As I've said, they know that we are going to discover this. So this is all a preemptive strike against 5D people who carry Christ consciousness, very bright people, etc., etc. So that is what they're doing right now. But what I believe will most likely happen is they are going to play out the Book of Revelations, and there will be a major asteroid or meteor strike, and they will capitalize on the despair that occurs out of this. And these supposedly benevolent ETs will come in here either shortly before or after that asteroid or meteor strike, and they will capitalize on that despair to look as though they are our potential saviors, when in fact they are protecting them at their own interests.
So you really have a catastrophic timeline view.
Yes, I have a more catastrophic, obviously, a substantially more catastrophic timeline view. And I would say that the positivity, the only positive aspect that I can see would be the strength of the human spirit and the will and our love that will show, that will shine through more than ever during this oppressive timeline.
Okay. Well. Thank you. We've come to the end of the segment. Following that, I'm going to share with you my paper on the positive timeline that may make a difference to you. But thank you, George. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Good enough then. Bye-bye.